Hi, friends. Welcome back. Let's talk about the markets and what are billionaires buying and selling. It turns out on the selling side, Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway are selling some of their Apple holdings. I'm looking at this here. This is a breakdown of it. I guess it's about 1.09% of their Apple holdings. They got really a lot. They have 905,000 shares, so really a lot. But yes, they are selling. I think, well, there's a couple ways you could read this. One is maybe they think it's too rich. That's possible. The other is just that Apple's grown so much. It is a major part of their portfolio, maybe too big. 50% is the one read here, meaning that, if you look at Berkshire Hathaway, 50% is Apple. Another read that I have here is that it's about 45%. So depending on, which number is correct, they both show that they have about 900,000 shares of this thing. But yes, they are selling some Apples. That's over at Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway. Mr. Munger passed away last year. So this could be maybe the Warren Buffett's replacement. I forget the person's name, but they've already picked a successor whenever Buffett decides to retire. But he may just work it up till, his final breath. I want to show you guys this stuff too, which is interesting because it also shows the other things that Warren Buffett is holding in case you don't know. So Apple is their largest holding. After that, it's Bank of America, then American Express, then Coca-Cola, Chevron, Occidental, Kraft Heinz, Moody's, and Mitsubishi, Itochu, Mitsui. So these are Japanese companies. And those are essentially their top holdings. Holdings after that are under 1%. So essentially the big ones are Apple, Bank of America, and American Express, and Coca-Cola. He's been in Coca-Cola for a long time. He's got like 400,000 shares of this thing. The thing with Warren Buffett is he can't quite do the same thing as retail investors because they own such a large portion of the company. So, if I read this correctly, it says Apple, 905,000 shares. That's a stake at 5.9% of the company, right? It's quite a bit. Bank of America, about 13% of the company. American Express, 20%. And then some of these bigger ones like Occidental, 28% of the company that he owns. I mentioned the Occidental one because they always ask you why didn't you just buy the company, because he totally could. But, maybe there's a bunch of headaches with that. The other thing, too, I want to mention is that there's other things that they were buying and selling. So he's buying up oil companies. We're talking about Warren Buffett here. I can see Chevron and Occidental. You guys can see this. So it says he's adding, 14.3%? 14.37% he's adding to his holdings in Chevron, and then 8.74 to Occidental. The one that really stuck out to me, actually a couple. So one is what else is he selling? It's Paramount Global. I wonder if they took a loss on this. I'm not sure. I remember when they were getting Paramount, I want to say like in the 20s or 30s, something like that. This would have been last year or a couple years ago. And it says here they've really reduced by 32% of their holdings. They're also selling HP, reduced like almost all of it, I guess, reduced 77% of the holdings. So it's always interesting to see what Warren Buffett has in his portfolio. This shows a couple other things that are worth noting is that, these kind of people, they have a bunch of different things. Oftentimes what happens in sort of the YouTube/social media space is that people say, Warren Buffett's buying X and therefore I'm going to put 100% of my portfolio in X. Not really a great move. Put your eggs in different baskets, right? So don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's just the way the markets work, right? You don't know for sure. What if, one day you wake up and, someone is deciding that they're no longer going to drink Coca-Cola. There's a big scandal over there and we're all drinking Pepsi, something like that, right? So you just want to protect yourself. So you could read this a couple different ways. One is Apple's stake too large in the Berkshire Hathaway, or do they think Apple's too rich? Now, there's a couple ways to read this. First, I want to point out that it's kind of interesting. This is regards to Sony, which I think is related to Apple, right? These are both personal consumer electronics. Sony's saying, this just came out an hour ago, that they're basically going to be flat on their Sony PlayStation sales. So that's the PlayStation 5. The issue is with these kind of companies, right? Be it Apple, be it Sony, or you can talk about Microsoft, I guess, are they putting out products, consumer products, that people want to buy? So it'd be one. Is there something compelling enough for you to buy it? So I use the example of Microsoft. Like they have that Surface thing, which is a pretty cool computer, and that competes with the iPad or the MacBook, say. And are they leading in that category? So do they have something that people want to buy? Two, do consumers have enough money to buy said things, right? Because you could read this Sony thing a couple different ways. You could say, well, maybe the PlayStation 5 isn't very good and people just aren't going to buy it anymore, right? Or two, maybe the consumers just don't have enough money to buy PlayStation, right? There's another way you can look at this as well, is that people like PlayStation, they have enough money to buy it, just that they don't need to buy any more of it, right? You're making a product so good these days to where it's not like they don't have to replace it right away. And this is sort of why you'll see something like where Apple is trying to introduce that new, headset thing and say, hey guys, come buy a $3,500 headset. We know you love your $1,000 phone. Now you need a, $3,500 headset. And my opinion on that stuff is like, people probably don't need the headset and it's probably too much. So I mentioned all these things when we talk about the news. It's just sort of like, okay, this is how you understand the markets, right? There's different things that we track. That's why we track different things. Also, too, what else are billionaires buying and selling? Bezos is selling yet more Amazon stock. We talked about this before. He sold about $2 billion worth a couple days ago. He sold another $2 billion, so now it's up to $4 billion. So this is my understanding, is he's going to sell like 50 million shares, something like that. He has really a lot of this stuff. And that might be around 10 billion total. And what's interesting about the Bezos situation is he's moving to Florida to essentially get out of paying taxes in Washington State. We'll see if Washington State does something, because it just the way these things are done. We're talking about so much money. I think I read somewhere that like if he's able to sell and then claim residency in Florida, he'll get out. I already mentioned that. I can't remember if I mentioned it, but it's like $288 million of tax revenue that could go to Washington State that they would miss. So we'll see what happens with that. But yes, he's selling, and it's interesting because for someone like a Bezos, he has to file ahead of when he's going to be selling and say, hey, I'm planning to sell. He just filed like a couple weeks ago and it started immediately selling. So I think that is certainly something of note. Also in the news too, we talk about billionaires. What are they buying and selling? Michael Burry is actually buying Chinese stocks. So this was an interesting one. These stocks are kind of meme stocks on the YouTubes. People do like to talk about this stuff, but what is he doing? He's buying some Alibaba and JD. I can see it right here. I don't think it's like a major holdings in terms of compared to say Warren Buffett. So yeah, I give you an example. So it says he's bought a whole bunch, $75,000 shares. It ends up being about roughly $6 million. Compared to Berkshire Hathaway, which is like, just I want to give you an idea. Berkshire Hathaway, like their Apple holding is 900,000 shares, and that's like, I can't even do the math on this. That's $174 billion if I'm reading this correctly. Yeah, that should be right. It gets to be a big number. But the reason why I mention that is because Burry's largely been bearish, so it's not like they're dumping all of their money in the market. Just they do have some holdings, and this is something that it's true for. Many of these companies, even when our market seems a bit, hot, it's not like everyone can just sell everything and just go 100% cash, right? So, don't expect Berkshire Hathaway just to liquidate everything. They can't. They just have too much, and it's not really like conducive to the taxes and other things like that. Moreover, if you want to look at Michael Burry, he's got some healthcare stock. He's got some bank stock. You can see right here. So it's HCA Healthcare, Oracle, Citibank, CVS. He's got some Google. And then I guess he was selling Nexstar Media Group. I don't even know what that is, to be honest. Selling some Starboard Keller, selling some Booking Holdings, and just got some various odd ends and things like that. So I put it up here. You guys can take a look for yourself to see what he likes. But he's been buying lots of different things, Square, Toast, etc. But again, when you do look what they're buying, look at what the percentage of the portfolio, how much money we're talking about here. And for someone like Burry, like it's very, very different than say the Berkshire Hathaway. So if I had to guess, I don't think they're putting that much money in the market. Moreover, I can tell you what it is. It's 94 million. I see right there. So it's for these kind of people, it's not that much in comparison to say something like a Berkshire Hathaway. Markets were largely up today, so I was actually surprised, to be really frank. If you followed my video yesterday, we saw that the CPI data was a bit hot, right? Came in higher than estimates, basically saying that, hey, inflation may stick around longer and the Fed may not cut at all this year. That's certainly a possibility when Wall Street was trying to betting on more cuts than what could be actually coming. Treasury yields today, we check this stuff. We track this stuff all the time. Because if you don't understand these things, so basically it's like, okay, if you got money and you want to invest, do you want to just buy bonds? They're safe. This is the percentage that you're going to get. Or do you want to take some risk and put it in stocks? That's essentially what it is. And so, money managers always have to decide, what's the best place how to put the money regarding risk management and also to rate of return or return on equity, however you want to say it. The other thing too is I don't show this all the time, and I don't show it every day, but I do show it when it's pertinent. So this is the shareholder PE ratio. It gives you a general sense of sort of where we are in the market. So we know that Bezos is selling some of his Amazon shares. We know that Warren Buffett's selling some of his Apple. We know that Burry's buying some Chinese stocks. We can see here with the shareholder PE. So PE is the price of the stock compared to how much a company earns. Is reading at 33. So that's a little bit hot. The median for this is 15, 16, 17, kind of in that range. And then the highest this has ever been was 44. When the shareholder PE hits 40, that usually means the market's ready for a pullback. So we're getting there. Ever so slowly. So you guys can see right there. I already think we're running hot as it is compared to historical, right? I mean, we can all see it. But it depends what the market wants to do, and the markets be crazy. I'm just giving you guys some general guideposts of how to think about this stuff. The other thing too to be considering as well is Morgan Stanley is not hiring. They're actually firing. It says here, Morgan Stanley to cut several hundred jobs in the wealth unit. So that basically just shows you that this kind of stuff is slowing, and they're not expecting it to pick up anytime soon. If they were, they would be hiring, and then they're not. The other thing I want to mention to you guys, which is something that I think is important, and I wish we would change it in our markets, talking about the U.S. markets here. Lyft did their earnings, right? And it had this crazy situation. If you're watching the stock spiked crazy amounts. I can't remember what it was. It was like 60% in after or something like that, right? Which is kind of crazy. And it's like in like 1 minute. And then there was a 45-minute thing where it turned out that it was a typo. So what it was when Lyft reported their earnings, they said, I think it was their, I want to say it was their operating margin. They said there was going to be 500% growth, right? And like the computer's like, oh my God, 500% growth in your margins. That's awesome. But it turned out to only be 50% growth, which is still very good, but obviously it's not quite the same as 500%. So they had an error of a 0, and the algorithm says, pick that up, and then, the stock soared. The reason why I mentioned this whole Lyft thing, and sort of like I like to show you guys what actual people are doing in the portfolio management, is, in my opinion, we should take out and remove this sort of automatic robo trading kind of stuff that all of the big money uses, because I think it would create more fair markets. This is my opinion. And I think this Lyft earnings report really exposed that kind of system that we have, but it's been like this for a while. This particular case was a really clear indication of that, because the data gets to, the big money much, much faster. They have the robots can read it right away, and then, they make trades accordingly. But it does certainly show that there is a problem when you have essentially this robo trading in, when you got a typo, an error, right, with like 1 0, and it can cause a stock to move that much, and just remind me of like, we probably should just go back to all humans and stuff like that. But obviously no one listens to me, and there's too much money involved in this stuff to where like we may never go back to that kind of world. So I just wanted to let you know that was kind of a funny thing. So please let me know your thoughts on this stuff. This is what billionaires are buying and selling. Always appreciate your time, and I'll catch you next video.